Hello YouTube and welcome back to Old Maryland 63 C10. This is episode 18, and in this episode we're going to take a quick look back at the chassis with a few things that we updated and then get started working on the inside of the cab with a few little fixes to get started. So let's get started with taking a look at the chassis. Wanted to bring everybody up to speed on just the few things I added back to the chassis since the last video. I went ahead and installed the gas tank, painted up all the hardware in the brackets and installed that. The brackets and again hardware for the electric pump and the fuel filter, went ahead and installed those. We'll come back and talk a little bit about the paint at the end of the video. I do have a little bit of work on this line to do down here, this stainless steel line. The 3/8 stainless steel is a little bit hard to put fittings on, or I'm sorry, flares on. The tool that I borrowed isn't quite getting it done. So I want to come back and do a little bit more with that. But again, I wanted to bolt everything up, get it where it's pretty much going to be. I went ahead and I installed my brake lines. Oops, sorry about that. Installed the brake lines on the rear here. This was a stainless steel set from inline tube. Everything pretty much fit pretty well. Had to do a few little straightens here and there, but overall. And then the fuel line and the brake line moving up the chassis. I used the old clips that I had just to start kind of getting things fitted. And I still need to make a couple more adjustments as we get closer to the front. Again, I'm waiting for some new clips to come in, so I didn't want to really kind of bang these in because I have new ones on the way, but they were back ordered. And here's where it gets a little bit more jumbled, I guess I should say. So the fuel line is going to need to bend up a little bit more, and the brake line is going to have to probably bend down a little bit more and in towards the chassis. So it needs a little bit of tweaking, but nothing too bad. And again, the same things here. I just have these lines laying in the front chassis here because they're going to need a little bit more work before they fit exactly right. So there's a couple other spots in the lines that are going to need a little bit of work. So for instance, right here, this brake line is sitting a little too close here, so we'll probably bend this a little bit and get a little bit more clearance there. So little things like that. I bolted in the cutouts. There's a video I did earlier on that. That was a little bit of a challenge to get those cutouts in there. So they're in, bolted those up. And one other thing, I guess, about the brake lines before I finish up, I have a CPP disc brake kit and a pre-bent stainless steel brake line set. And this fitting here did not fit into the CPP hose. So I needed to get this adapter. I think it's a 7/16 to, I think 3/8. So I just went to a local parts store. The inline tube people knew about it as soon as I mentioned it to them, but I didn't want to pay for shipping, and I was able to find them here. So if you have a CPP kit and a 63, I think the 66 maybe of the years that the lines, that adapter is going to be needed to be able to hook up the hard line to the rubber hose. And then I put the motor mounts in. They're in there loose because I want to make sure I adjust things as I go, but they're in and set in the chassis. So that's just a quick update to what I got done in the chassis. It's pretty much done. Again, before everything goes together, I'm going to go back, retighten everything, double check all of my fittings. Again, I haven't torqued down the rear suspension yet, so that's going to be done. And of course, I need to grease all of my ball joints and tie rod ends up here. So just wanted to bring you up to speed on the chassis. So now let's get started on the cab. So the first thing we're going to do in the cab is remove the tank brackets. I already cut that side off on the driver's side. So what I did was I took blue tape just to try to get a line, because this is, curves up and down. And then I took a black marker and just traced along just so I can get a better line to try to be able to cut. So I can see it a little bit better because I don't have great lighting in here. So that'll be the first thing to take out. And I wish I had a smaller cutoff, pneumatic cutoff wheel or something like that, because this kind of gets a little bulky in here. But we'll go ahead and give it a try and get this bracket cut off. So the next step is we're going to fill in some of these holes we're not going to use. We're going to start with the ones for the jack, and it's 2, 4, 6, 8 holes, and then there's one for the gas line that, since we've relocated the tank, obviously don't have to worry about that, and then the shifter hole up in the tunnel. But first we'll start off with these. Again, it's 8 of them. No, 2, 4, 6. Yeah, 8 of them. So we'll grind down the metal just to get clean metal. I'll try to get some of that underneath, and then we'll show you how we're going to try to weld these up. So let's just grind these down. My plan for filling in these holes is to try to build up a bead on one side of the hole and just kind of fill the hole in by, just keep putting BBs on it basically. I think it would take me forever to make little tiny patches to fill in these holes. So I think that's what I'm going to try to do. I don't know if I'm going to blow through a bunch of times or miss, but we're going to give it a try and we'll see how we make out. Okay, my welds aren't pretty, but I filled them in. So let's move on to the gas tank. Okay, so we cut about a quarter size little plug here to fill in for the gas line. So just going to go in here a little bit, and I probably should have a little bit more of a gap so the weld can kind of penetrate a little bit, but I think we'll be okay for this one. So let's go ahead and get this tacked in. Okay, got this finished up. Still working on my welding, got a little more grinding to do. I will seam seal this from the bottom as well as the other ones I've plugged up. Okay, so the last 2 holes we need to patch right off the bat are the 2 where the original fuse box was attached to the firewall. The American Auto Wire kit I have, it actually bolts through where the fender, or I'm sorry, where the inner fender bolts on, so we just need to close these up. So we're going to get these cleaned up and go ahead and weld them shut. So I'm going to do the same method as before, start a BB on each side and just kind of close the hole up. So let's weld these closed. Okay, so that finishes up those 2 holes. I think that's about all the ones I need to patch for right now. So we're just going to put a little bit of primer on this just to stop it from getting any surface rust on it. But that'll wrap up, I think, all the little holes we need to do right now. Yeah, that's going to wrap up some of the small holes I wanted to fix in the cab for today. The last video when I talked about assessing the cab, the idea was to have the cab blasted. I was going to look into getting a price on that and see if I could get somebody to blast it here. And then basically start on the inside of the cab and work my way out where I can practice my welding on the floor that's going to eventually be covered by carpet or at least a rubber mat. And frankly, try to just get better before I started working on the outside of the cab where you will actually see my metal work. So I had somebody come out and take a look. The price they gave me was fair to do it. So I am going to have the inside of the cab blasted. I have to tape up a lot of the areas that I'm going to try to save the patina because, again, I'm not going to worry about trying to paint the entire truck this go around. So I'll have to do a bunch of taping to help protect some of the paint I don't want blasted. But we are going to have that done. That was the original plan. I'm still going to have it blasted, but what I discovered the hard way with some of the hardware I was painting is it has been so cold in Maryland, and my garage, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is not heated. So even though I had my heater on the parts and the paint, had the paint inside the house, when I was spraying the hardware, it felt dry to the touch, but as soon as my hands, I think essentially maybe warmed it up a little bit or something, it started to all of a sudden get tacky. And I let it sit for 3, 4, 5 days thinking it would cure, but it just never cured. So I have a lot of touch up to do on my hardware because the hardware's got, you know, dust or just fingerprints or whatever. So I have a lot of touch up to do on the frame. So I can't blast the whole cab and paint right now because it's just too cold. Go figure. We haven't had a winter like this in Maryland in years, and the year I need the paint, we've got a cold winter. So we're actually going to switch. I'm going to go ahead and start on the outside of the cab, take my time, do the best weld jobs I can. I'm not sure if I'm going to start on the rocker panel or the cab corner. I'll take a little bit closer look at that and figure out which one I'm going to start with. So in the next video, we're going to start on the outside and start knocking out some of the bodywork and the rusted parts, and we'll see how it goes. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time on Old Maryland 63 C10. Thanks for watching.